Today we're getting a lot of small detail work on the Panhead project. Stick around and see what we get done. Morning everybody, welcome back. Monday morning in the shop. Gonna jump back on the Panhead build this morning. If you remember last time we made our little mock-up fender piece, so I got some stainless in. We're gonna go ahead and cut that piece, get it tacked in place to the sissy bar, so we'll have our fender fully mounted. We also got a tail light that we're happy with. Gonna look at getting that mounted up to the fender. It fits in just in front of the sissy bar mounting plate, and it's got a really cool look. So we're going to work on that, possibly start machining some parts for the motor mount. Oh, I also got the end mill holder for our milling machine, so we can go ahead and cut our radius with our ball mill on our tag and oil filter mount and start looking at locating that and mounting it to the frame. So a couple small things to do. Might tack up the air ride airbag mount, try and get the seat pan mounted today. You know, just a bunch of little stuff like that needs to get chipped away at. And then hopefully next week we will start looking at foot controls. I want to do the foot controls before we do the exhaust, so I have the exhaust flanges drawn up. We can cut those out of stainless and then we'll start looking at exhaust. But first I want to get the foot controls on. The other thing we may do today is modify the handlebar risers. They're supposed to be for 1-inch bars. They're a little bit undersized. I don't know what's going on with that, but I'd like to get those machined out so we can get our bars on. Then we'll have our bars, our seat pan, and we can really nail down our foot control location. Not 100% sure what we're going to do with those yet, but that's coming up in the coming weeks. So like I said, hopefully we can get all these little things knocked out today. Alright guys, so we're trying to button up a lot of the little small pieces today. First thing on the agenda, we're going to go ahead and cut out our sissy bar cross piece. It's basically the same piece we made last week out of mock-up steel. We're cutting in stainless today. It's going to span between the two rungs of the sissy bar and mount the fender at the rear tip. Just a nice little simple piece we kind of came up with. Something a little bit different for mounting the fender. It's kind of hard to make unique fender mounts these days as so much stuff has been done, but anyway, we're trying to come up with something different. It'll get polished along with the sissy bar. So the Maverick plasma table made short work of that. And as you can see here, in just a minute when I get it loose, it came out nice. So I'm going to head over to the belt sander and get this cleaned up. So we went ahead and fired up our little 2x42 belt sander. It's got a rough abrasive belt on it, 36 grit. We knocked down all the heavy stuff there, get the penetration divots and all that sanded off from the plasma table. Once we get that done, jump over on our old slower moving fine belt 6x48. Just get the edge cleaned up just a little bit, and that'll be good enough for now until we're ready to polish this thing once it gets welded in place. So quick little work up there, and then we'll take it over to the bike for final fitment and bending. We got our sample piece, which is nice because that gives us the perfect radius that we know we need. So quick trip over to the bench vise, and luckily this 1/8 inch material's not terribly stiff. I'm able to just bend it around by hand how we need it and get all the bends into place. So last cuts on the sissy bar plate need to be made on the bandsaw. There to just remove two little tangs in the notched area. lets it slide in from the rear of the sissy bar and lock onto the curvature of it. 2 little simple cuts and we're ready to fit it to the bike. Alright, so now that we got the part made and fit to the bike, we're going to come in here and get some tack welding done. Something I want to mention, I just added a finger control to my TIG torch, and it has been really super helpful for doing quick tacks like this, especially when you're not sitting down. It just allows a lot of control. You don't have to try and balance on one foot while you're working the foot pedal. It's something I've thought about a bunch, but I never thought I would really like it, and now that I've done it, I have to say I'm completely amazed at how much I do like having it. So if you're considering one, I would definitely recommend giving it a shot. Once we got the plate tacked in, we went ahead and removed the wheel, get it out of the way so we don't have any overheating problems with the tire. Also, now that it's clear, we can go ahead and drill the holes for the mounting bolts to the fender. It's going to take 3 number 10 screws and ultimately probably end up with some acorn nuts on the top. Not 100% sure on that as of yet, but just go ahead and getting this welded up nice and tight. Not a full weld, obviously we'll do all that on the table once it's broken down, but just adding 4 or 5 nice little beads so that nothing bends or tweaks when we dismantle the bike before we get it fully welded. With the sissy bar mount all complete, it was time to get the tail light mocked up. So we're going to use this little rubber gasket that comes with the tail light to insulate it between the fender and the actual light housing. So just line this up, slide it in place, mark a couple holes with our Sharpie, grab our drill, and send it home. Really a simple mount. Luckily the holes are top, through holes right on the top, so it was easy to mark and drill and bolt it into place. So once we did that, we grabbed the cutoff wheel quick, zipped off the extra long bolts that are holding the fender and the tail light on, just to get them out of our way and let us have a more visual representation of our mock-up. So moving on from the fender and sissy bar, getting the frame cleaned up. Several weeks back we fabricated the airbag mount for the air ride seat. So I'm going to go ahead and get that tacked into place. That way we'll have it in its permanent location and we can work on getting the seat pan mounted. Now that we've got our airbag tray mounted, we're going to go ahead and put some layout fluid here on our seat hinge. We'll let that dry, and then that'll allow us to scribe where we want to drill our mounting holes for our seat pan.
See it like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Alright, Matt, probably like 1.
Whatever.
1 or 2, because I have an appointment at 3. We'll just come. I'll text you, you probably won't answer.
Your appointment's at 3:30?
No, we have a nail appointment at 4.
4. Oh, that's why I thought you said 3:30 because I was going to say no. I think Amanda said.
At an hour, 2 hours before I have a lash appointment.
Gotcha. Quick trip over to the drill press. Drill and countersink our 2 front seat pan mounting holes on the seat tee. The reason we're doing the countersink is we'll use a countersunk screw from underneath that will thread into a weld nut on the pan. All that'll get done before the pan gets upholstered. And it'll give us a nice slim fit underneath the seat pan so you don't have any hardware protruding into the seat cushion. Wouldn't really be a fun day in the shop if we didn't get over to the milling machine. So last week we chalked up our tag mount, but we were stopped because we didn't have a holder for our 1-inch end mill. So I got that in. We got our 1-inch ball end mill in the mill, and we'll go ahead and machine a nice radius into the underside of our tag bracket. That radius just lets it sit on the frame tube nice and clean, and we'll drill and tap to finish mounting that onto the frame. Alright, so we got our radius milled in our tag oil filter housing mount plate. We're going to go ahead and mount it to the frame here. Transfer punch a hole, and I'm going to drill and tap 3 holes. Always drill the first one, tap it, bolt the piece in, then transfer punch the other 2 holes. That way you don't have to worry about holding it rigid while you transfer 3 holes. You almost always screw that up and miss one. So I'm going to grab a drill and a tap and get to work. So now that we got our tag plate mounted, the last thing to do was get the oil filter mount installed. This is a kind of generic hot rod type oil filter mount for a remote mount oil filter on just about anything. So we went ahead and tapped these holes out to accept some 3/8 bolts. So we're going ahead and get these holes all tapped out, bolted on. Right now I'm just using some mock-up bolts. Eventually these bolt holes will be countersunk, and we'll use countersunk head bolts. That'll allow the plate to mount on top of here, doing two things. Number one, it'll allow the plate to lay flat on the plate mount, plus it'll hide the mounting bolts from the oil filter mount. So then you can see we just slid a regular Wix automotive type oil filter on there, as well as a nice finned oil filter cover. Alright, so the last piece of the day is to get these handlebar risers modified. They were designed for 1-inch bars, but unfortunately they slipped past quality control, I guess, and they've got about a 950 thousandths hole in them, so it's kind of hard to tell in the video, but I have a little washer in between the two halves. The reason I do that is it opens the hole up just slightly. That way when we open the hole up with the 1-inch drill bit, when you remove the washer, the hole will clamp down in that direction, slightly smaller than 1 inch, and grip the handlebars nice and tight. It's a trick I use a lot of times when I increase from 7/8 to 1 inch on hand controls for stuff we want to use on 1-inch bars that we can only get for 7/8 bars. So pretty easy thing to do. I do it in the milling machine. You could probably do it in a drill press if you had a decent vise. But it's just a quick, easy way to open that hole up without having to worry about it being too large and loose on your handlebars. So we went ahead and opened up the hole on both of these clamps. Also, the bolt holes where they clamp together, we went ahead and opened up with a tapered reamer. These are some nice stainless steel parts, but the quality control was just a little bit lacking, so they were inexpensive, so it was worth the little bit of time it took to spend cleaning them up and getting them dialed in for our purposes. Now that we got the mounting holes machined to the right size, we're able to get our risers and bars completely installed on the bike and in our mock-up position. This is the last piece we need before we can start working on foot controls. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today. Real happy with that progress. We got pretty much everything we wanted done. We got our oil filter, tag mount done. We got our taillight done. Sissy bar fender mount completed. We got our handlebar risers fixed and our bars on, seat mounted, seat pivot, all that good stuff. So we are ready to get a little mock-up foam on that seat and sit up there and figure out our floorboards or foot pegs or whatever it is we're going to do with that. So really pumped on that. Hopefully this week we'll be able to get some plans made and some parts ordered, and we'll be back next week to continue on with this project and hopefully be working on foot controls. If not, we'll jump back on our Springer leg part. I haven't gotten to that yet because I need to put the rotary table on the mill, and I've been using the mill for a bunch of other stuff. So but if we don't get our foot control situation figured out this week, we will definitely be back on the Springer leg fabrication on the milling machine next week. So one way or another, we'll be back with more on the Panhead. So appreciate you guys being here, and hope to see you next time at Gaddy's Garage.